There are moments in life when God begins to pull us away from everything and everyone we thought we needed. It can feel confusing, even painful at times, because we're conditioned to believe that connection, busyness, and constant interaction are signs of progress. But what we often fail to see is that some of the most profound growth happens in silence, in stillness, and in solitude. When God isolates you, He's not punishing you, He's prioritizing you. He's creating the conditions necessary for transformation. And one of the first things He does in that isolation is clear out the distractions. We are surrounded by noise, external and internal, the opinions of others, the pressure of expectations, the lure of comfort and convenience. All of it competes for our attention. God can't pour into a heart that's already full of clutter. So, He begins by removing the things that are not aligned with where He's taking you. People who once had influence in your life may fall silent. Opportunities that once thrilled you may suddenly disappear. You may look around and feel abandoned, but what you're experiencing isn't abandonment, it's alignment. In the quiet, you begin to hear differently. Not just the voice of God, but your own soul speaking truths you've long ignored. The things you brushed aside when you were too busy to notice now rise to the surface. You start to feel the weight of dreams you've buried, and you sense the gentle tug of purpose calling you to dig deeper. Isolation removes the static so the signal becomes clear, and in that clarity, you begin to see what truly matters. Many people never discover who they are because they're constantly surrounded by who everyone else wants them to be. It's only when you're alone, with no audience and no applause, that you come face to face with your authentic self. That's where power is born. That's where identity takes root. And God knows that before He can bless you with more, He must first show you who you are without it all. This season of separation is not about loneliness, it's about preparation. God pulls you away not to deprive you, but to develop you. He knows that blessings require capacity, and capacity is built in quiet places. You can't hear destiny when doubt and distraction are louder than faith. So He makes space. He silences the world around you so He can awaken the world within you. You may not understand it now, but trust this. When God isolates you, it's because He's getting ready to elevate you. In every season of isolation, there's a refining fire quietly burning. At first, you may not see it. You might only feel the weight of being unseen, the ache of delay, the frustration of unanswered prayers. But if you stay still long enough, if you don't run from the silence, you'll begin to notice what's really happening. God is building you, and not the surface-level version of you that performs well in public, but the deep, down, unshakable part of you that can stand the pressure of your calling. You see, blessings aren't light. They're heavy. They come with responsibility, endurance, and often opposition. If you're going to carry what God has for you, you need the strength to hold it. And strength isn't formed when everything is easy. It's formed when everything feels uncertain. It's built in the seasons where your faith has to walk without sight, where your hope has to speak louder than your fear, where you learn to lean on God not because you want to, but because there's no one else to lean on. It's in isolation that your character is tested, not for the sake of punishment, but so that the cracks can be seen and sealed before the blessing comes. If you can't be trusted with solitude, how can you be trusted with influence? If you crumble when you're unseen, how will you remain stable when the spotlight hits? God uses isolation like a blacksmith uses fire, to shape, to strengthen, to purify. He's not breaking you, He's forging you. This is where discipline is born. This is where self-control is formed, when no one is watching and you still choose integrity, when no one is clapping and you still choose excellence, when your emotions want to quit, but your spirit whispers, keep going. You learn not to chase feelings, but to live by principle. You stop living for validation, and you start moving from conviction. I'll tell you this, every man or woman who has done something great, who has carried something meaningful, has walked through a season of obscurity. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, but it's necessary, because until you learn to stand firm in private, you're not ready for what's coming in public. And believe me, the weight of a blessing can crush someone who's still fragile in spirit. So if you're in that place now, where it feels like nothing's moving, where the silence feels heavy and the doors seem shut, don't rush it, don't curse it. This is the gym for your spirit. The wilderness is your classroom. It may not look like progress, but God is sculpting the version of you that won't just receive the blessing, but sustain it. There's a reason God draws you into isolation before He brings you into increase. It's not just to quiet the noise around you. It's to heal what's been ignored within you. We spend so much of life rushing from moment to moment, numbing pain with distractions, suppressing emotions with busyness, and calling it strength. But God knows what you refuse to face will eventually control you. And so, in His mercy, He takes you into isolation, not to expose you to the world, but to expose you to yourself. In that stillness, things start to surface. Memories you've buried, wounds you thought were healed, patterns that keep repeating. He begins to peel back the layers, not to shame you, but to free you, and it's uncomfortable because healing always is. It's never easy to look at the places where you were broken, the areas where your trust was betrayed, the moments that shaped your fears. But you must look if you want to be whole. God won't let you carry unhealed trauma into the next season. Not because He's cruel, but because He's wise. He knows that an unhealed heart can't handle a new blessing. It will sabotage the very thing it's been praying for. That's why He isolates you, not to take something from you, but to give something back to you, yourself. The healed, whole, unshaken version of you, the version that doesn't respond from pain, but from peace, the one that doesn't perform for acceptance, but walks in confidence, the one that's not afraid to feel, to trust, to love, because it's no longer living in the shadow of the past. Most people fear isolation because they think it means being alone. But true isolation is never about being alone. It's about being undisturbed. It's God creating a space where the healing can finally happen without interference. Where you're no longer patching wounds just to get by, but letting Him touch the root of it. And that kind of healing doesn't happen in crowded rooms or busy schedules. It happens when there's nowhere to run, when the only option is surrender. This is where transformation begins, not on the mountaintop, but in the quiet, in the tears, in the honest conversations you have with God when no one else is around. That's where He meets you. That's where the exchange happens. Your pain for His peace, your past for His promise. And once you've been healed in private, you walk into public spaces with a strength that can't be shaken, a heart that doesn't leak, a soul that no longer needs to be rescued. So if you're in a season where God has pulled you aside, don't resist the process. Let Him do the work. Let Him touch what you've been hiding, because the blessing He has for you isn't just about what you'll receive, it's about who you'll become. Every great move of God begins in the unseen. That's the part we often overlook. We want the platform, the recognition, the open doors. But we forget that God never promotes without preparation, and He never prepares in the spotlight. He prepares in the shadows. He works in the quiet, in the tucked-away places where no one's watching. Because before He can trust you with visibility, He has to trust you with invisibility. That's why isolation is part of the process. It's not a pause in your destiny, it's the birthplace of it. Think about it. David was anointed king, but he didn't go straight to the throne. He went back to tending sheep, alone, forgotten, overlooked. But it was in those hidden fields that God was building a leader. While no one saw him, God was watching him. God was measuring his heart, testing his obedience, shaping his character. The same is true for you. If you find yourself in a season where it feels like no one sees what you're doing, where it seems like all your effort is unnoticed, don't be discouraged. That's not delay. It's divine development. The public blessing you're praying for requires private preparation you cannot skip. You can't lead on a stage what you haven't mastered in secret. You can't carry influence with power if you haven't first learned submission with humility. God is not trying to impress people with you. He's trying to make you into someone who can carry his glory with integrity. And that happens when no one else is around. It's in the quiet places that your motives are revealed. Are you doing it for applause or for purpose? Are you chasing a platform or chasing God? These questions don't get answered in crowds. They get answered in isolation, when all the noise is gone and it's just you and him. That's when the real refining begins. And when you pass those quiet tests, when you keep showing up in excellence even when there's no audience, when you stay faithful to the small assignments, when you serve without being seen, God takes note. You may feel invisible, but in heaven you're being recorded. God hides you to protect you while he prepares you, because premature exposure can destroy what hasn't been fully formed, and he loves you too much to give you something you're not ready to hold. So he waits, he covers you, he teaches you in silence, and when the time is right, when the oil has settled and the character has been carved, he opens the door that no man can shut. And the blessing he brings won't just elevate you, it will reveal who you've become in the process. So don't despise the hidden place, embrace it, because every private moment of preparation is shaping you for a blessing that will not only change your life, but leave a legacy. There is a depth to your relationship with God that can only be discovered in isolation. Not the kind that feels like punishment, but the kind that feels like a pulling, where he removes the crowd, closes the door, and whispers, "It's just me and you now." Most people run from that kind of solitude because it feels like loss. It feels like separation. But what if I told you it's the greatest invitation you'll ever receive? Because in that quiet space, God is not distancing himself. He's drawing you closer. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, activity, and people's voices, it's easy to confuse movement with intimacy. But God doesn't want a surface connection with you. He wants communion. That kind of closeness can't be developed in 5-minute prayers or occasional worship. It grows when you sit in the silence and allow him to speak, not just to your mind, but to your soul. In isolation, he begins to show you who he is, not as an idea, not as a tradition, but as a father, as a friend, as your source. This is where dependency is stripped and real trust is formed. When the job dries up, when the friends disappear, when the phone doesn't ring and the plans fall apart, you start to ask, what's left? And that's when you hear him say, I'm still here. You realize that the presence of God isn't tied to a building, a crowd, or a feeling. It's constant, it's sustaining, and the more you lean into it, the more you begin to walk in peace that doesn't make sense and strength that doesn't come from you. You stop begging for the applause of people and start craving the approval of God. You stop chasing after temporary highs and start yearning for eternal truth. In that secret place, a new intimacy is formed, a bond that can't be shaken when storms come. Because you've tasted his presence when everything else was stripped away, and you found it to be enough. This is the intimacy that fuels purpose. This is the connection that gives you vision, and it doesn't happen on stages or in spotlights. It happens in quiet rooms, in late nights with open Bibles, in whispered prayers through tears, in still moments where your spirit finally stops striving. That's where you start to know him, not just believe in him, not just quote him, but know him. And once you know him that way, no one can convince you otherwise. So if you're in a season where he's pulled you away from everything familiar, don't see it as rejection. See it as an invitation to intimacy, an invitation to deeper relationship. Because when God isolates you, it's not to take something from you. It's to give you more of himself. And once you have that, you realize it was the greatest blessing all along. Sometimes when God starts pulling things out of your life, people, places, routines, it feels like everything is falling apart. But what if I told you it's actually falling into place? We often think isolation is a sign that we've messed up or that we've been forgotten. But in reality, it's a sign that God is doing some serious repositioning. He's not just preparing you for a blessing, he's preparing you to fit the blessing, and that means some things and sometimes some people can't come with you. You see, God has a specific plan for your life, and in order to walk in that plan, you have to be aligned with the right mindset, the right environment, and the right direction. Isolation isn't random, it's strategic. It's God redirecting your steps, realigning your heart, and resetting your focus. There are some blessings that require you to be in the right place, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so he takes the time to reposition you, because what good is an open door if you're not ready to walk through it? It's in isolation that clarity comes, not just about where you're going, but also about where you don't belong anymore. Sometimes the very thing holding you back is something you're still holding on to, and God, in his grace, begins to remove it, not to hurt you, but to free you. He knows that if you stay connected to what's familiar, you might miss what's coming. So he detaches you, prunes you, and places you in a season where you have no choice but to depend on him for direction. In those moments, you start seeing the truth. Certain relationships, once essential, are revealed as seasonal. Certain opportunities you once begged for no longer make sense in light of who you're becoming. Isolation shows you what's real, and sometimes that clarity is the very breakthrough you didn't know you needed. Because God isn't trying to take you back to where you were. He's trying to move you forward into where you've never been. But alignment requires surrender. It requires trust. You have to trust that the silence isn't emptiness, it's positioning. You have to believe that even though the road feels lonely, it's leading somewhere divine. And when you begin to see the shift, not as rejection, but as redirection, everything changes. You realize he's not taking things away from you. He's making room for what's meant for you. God uses isolation to reposition you not just for the sake of change, but for the sake of destiny. He's aligning you with purpose, with favor, with people who recognize your value, with opportunities that match your calling. And when it all begins to unfold, you'll look back on the season you wanted to escape and realize it was the very path that led you to everything you were praying for.